that regardless of how many people are on there, because there's not too many people that are over this age. Anyway, what we're going to talk about is paradigms. And I don't know if you know what a paradigm is. If you had asked me 60 years ago what a paradigm was, I certainly couldn't have told you. In fact, if you had asked me 50 years ago, I couldn't have told you. Paradigm is it's sort of a relatively new word in the mind of the general public. And a lot of people wouldn't even know what it is. But a paradigm is a very important idea, and it stops us from living the life that we really want to live in more cases than not. So if you'll throw that slide up now, Scott, and look here for a moment. There is a man that played an enormous role in my life. And you can take that down and we'll throw it back up in a few minutes, Scott. 60 years ago, I had a gentleman sit down with me, not this one, you can take that down, Scott, please. And his name was Ray Stamford. And he gave me this book. And he said, Bob, if you will do exactly what I tell you, you can have anything you want. Now, I would imagine that there's someone in our audience right now that maybe in about the same spot I was in when he sat down with me. I had 2 months high school formal education. I had virtually no business experience. I worked in factories. I'd been in the Navy, working at dead-end jobs that weren't going anywhere. And I was 26 years old, but I was in a bad spot. And he sat down with me and he said, you know, Bob, he said, you can live whatever way you want. And he said, you can do the things you want. Well, he asked me if I've ever read anything, and I said, no, I didn't read. Now, today, I've got a beautiful library here in the studio. I have another one in my home. But he introduced me to this book. Now, you'll see I've got elastics around it because the book is literally falling apart. And up until that time, if I told you I'd do something, the odds are pretty good I wouldn't do it. I had never kept my word on anything. I mean, I was a lost soul. But he said to me, he said, if you'll read this every day, do exactly what I tell you and you have anything you want. Well, it's like I said, I didn't believe that. I mean, how could I believe it? You could have anything you want. I was earning $4,000 a year and I owed $6,000. I was in bad shape. I was a lost individual. And so, I don't know why, but I decided to do exactly what he told me. I'm going to tell you, if you will do exactly what I tell you this week, I guarantee a year from now, you're going to need a telescope to look back and see where you were right now. That's how much your life can change. And I don't even care how well you're doing. Because I've gone into some of the largest companies in the world and watched their sales go up by hundreds of millions of dollars when I teach them what we're going to just take a look at this week. And, you know, as I started to study this, my life started to change. Now, one of the first things I did was one of the first things he told me. He said, I want you to decide exactly what you want. I want you to write it on a card and carry it in your pocket. And that's exactly what I did. And I have a card. I've got it in an old plastic sleeve, and I carry it in my pocket. And what I've got on here is my goal. This is what I'm working towards. And he said, if you'll carry that in your pocket, he said, you're going to end up with it in your life. Now, I wrote on the card I wanted to have $25,000. That would be probably like you writing you want $1 billion. I mean, it was just so far out of reach. And he said, just keep reading it. And he said, do you believe it? And I said, no, I don't believe it. But I believed he believed it. And so he said, keep reading it. So I decided I would do that. And I did. Do you know that in a relatively short period of time, I had the $25,000, and I did it by cleaning floors. You see, he told me, he said, Bob, you got to be prepared to do anything honest to earn money. And he said, once you start earning it, if you study it, you'll learn how to earn money. And when you learn how to earn money, it's a whole different life. And he says, that's what I'm going to teach you. And so I did, and I was earning over $1 million a year. I started cleaning floors. I started cleaning one office. In less than 5 years, I was cleaning offices in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, Atlanta, and London, England. And I had done something to my mind. I didn't know what I had done, but man, I was winning in a big way. And I was just throwing the money all over the place because I knew where to get it. And I would go down to the Playboy Club I was on Park Lane, right beside the London Hilton. If you're in London, you'll know where that is. And I would go in there and I'd play roulette. I didn't care if I lost, and because I didn't care if I lost, I usually won. Well, one day I thought, I'm being very irresponsible. And I really was. And I thought, how did this happen to me? You see, I didn't even know how it all happened because it happened so fast. And I couldn't even find anybody who could tell me. I had been raised to believe that if you're going to earn a lot of money, you've got to be really smart. I knew I wasn't that smart, but I was earning a lot of money. So I knew that wasn't right. I was raised to believe if you don't go to school, you'll never get a good job. I didn't have a good job. I owned the whole company. I couldn't figure it out. Do you know, it took me 9.5 years. Well, 9.5 years later, I met this man that I showed you. His name, Leland Valvanderwall. He changed my life completely. He introduced me to a concept I'm going to introduce you to. And when he did that, it was like everything I'd been studying. I'd been studying a lot of information, but I'd study this book. I'd give this book to people, and they didn't change. And what he did, he brought everything together for me in a relatively short period of time. Now, here's a couple of things he told me, if you'll go back screen, Scott. And he said, Bob, he pointed out, he said, you are a unique individual. And he said, so am I, so is everybody else. And he said, you can literally create your own economy. You can do that. And he said, the only thing standing between you and what you want is yourself. He said, all about the mind, Bob. He says, it's about your marvelous mind. Then he started, thanks God, then he started to talk to me about the mind. And he said, you know, it's a strange thing, Bob, when we get talking about the mind, nobody's ever seen the mind. They have never seen the mind. Now, keep in mind that I was a very uneducated person. When you talk about the mind, I mean, I would think of psychiatrists, psychologists, behavioral scientists. No, he said, you want to get rid of those ideas. He said, the way I'm going to explain it to you is the way it was explained to me. And he said, we can show children how the mind functions. And he said, I'm going to show you something here that's rather interesting. And he said, Bob, understanding the mind and working in harmony with the laws governing the mind is essential if you really want to win in life. And then he started to tell me what a paradigm was. And he said, a paradigm is a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. And he started to talk about that. He said, it's a program in your subconscious mind that controls your behavior. And the paradigm has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior, and almost all of our behavior is habitual. Now I said, I want you to think about this, and I want you to think about it. We get out of bed in the morning, and bang, away we go, we move into a routine. And if you're living with someone else, you don't mess around with their routine because you just don't do that. We've all got a routine, and we go into a routine. And we do that day after day, and most people do it for their whole life. Earl Nightingale used to say, most people tiptoe through life hoping they make it safely to death. It's rather an interesting concept. And the paradigm is the program in your subconscious mind. And I said, here's the crazy part about it, Bob. The people that write this program, the ones that wrote the code for the program, they really didn't know what they were doing. Think of this for a moment. I've got a computer here. It's in a phone. I've got another computer right in front of me, and then here I've got a pad. And these are computers. Now, there's people write programs for these computers. They write code. And they really know what they're doing, and they're very, very good. And the program for me to put the slides up here, that's a program. It's a PowerPoint program. And these things work like a charm. Well, the people that are writing the code for them are very well educated and really understand what they're doing. But he said the people that are writing the program for the code that runs your life, they didn't know what they were doing. Now, most people don't even know that they have a program. Think of this for a moment. how do you account for a person going to the very best schools in the world, getting prestigious degrees, then spend the rest of their life losing? How do you account for that? How do you account for the fact that a person will come up with degrees that will run right off the end of a business card and maybe not able to get a half-decent job? Very insecure. How do you account for that? Well, I'm going to tell you how. There's a part of your mind that gathers information. There's a part of your mind when you read the book, you store the information in that part of your mind. But that part of your mind is not the part that controls the behavior of this thing you're living in. Your body is an instrument of your mind. It is an instrument of your mind. And it's your body that moves into action and produces the results you're getting. Your income, money, is a result. It's an income. The money you earn is always going to be controlled by the paradigm. One of the first things I ask people when if they come to work with me is, what's the most they've ever earned in a year? Now, I don't really care what the answer is, but I want to know what the answer is. And when I find out what the answer is, I know where their program is. And I know that they want to earn more money, and I want them to earn more money because I want their productivity to go up. And by showing them how to raise the productivity, I'm showing them how to earn more money. But I teach them something about money. You see, the paradigm controls your income. If you're struggling, trying to get your income to grow, don't buy into the fact that you've got to go and take another course in school, that you've got to learn this, you've got to learn that. You've got to understand how your paradigm works. I think Mikey is our marketing director, and I believe she and Tommy, the creative director, are the ones who put this program together, the pattern they'd like us to follow. I think they have us doing goals tomorrow. See, goals are a result. And we're going to show you paradigms today, and you're going to see how the paradigms control your life. Now, let me go back to that again. The paradigm is a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior, and almost all of our behavior is habitual. Okay? So stay with me here for a moment. Let's take a look at the areas of your life the paradigm controls. The paradigm controls your perception. Our good friend Wayne Dyer, God bless him, he's gone now, but he used to put it very well. He says, when you change the way you look at something, what you look at changes. Isn't that interesting? When you change the way you look at something, what you look at changes. That's perception. When you alter your perception, your whole world changes. Your paradigm controls your perception. Your paradigm controls how you look at things. That is very, very important. Your paradigm controls your use of time. Do you know that everybody gets exactly the same amount of time? You'll hear people talking about time management programs. I remember going to breakfast with Earl Nightingale one morning, and he had the most organized life of anyone I'd ever seen. He was a very cool guy. I never saw him rushing. I never saw anybody who got so much done in a short period of time as he did. And I asked him at breakfast this morning, I said, Earl, how did you learn to master time management? He looked at me and said, what the hell are you talking about? He said, I don't master time management. Nobody masters time management. He said, time can't be managed. He said, I merely manage activities. He said, I carry a card here in my pocket, and I write what I want on that card, and when I wake up tomorrow, I do it. He says, time can't be managed. Everybody gets exactly the same amount of time. The hobo that's sleeping on a park bench has the same amount of time as the most productive person in the world. It's what we do with our time that makes the difference. Well, the paradigm controls what you do with your time. Your paradigm controls your creativity. It controls your creativity. Some people say they're not creative. Everybody's creative. You were created in God's image. That makes you a creative being. And we'll talk more about that at another time. Your creativity probably is going to have a lot to do with your effectiveness. And your effectiveness has to do with your productivity. Now, there's something that stops almost everyone when they come to it, and that's logic. They'll say, well, you can't do that. That's just illogical. Do you know something? The Wright brothers were illogical. Edison was illogical. Ed Hillary was illogical. Nobody had ever been to the top of a mountain. Nobody had ever made an incandescent light. Nobody ever got a plane off the ground. These people were totally illogical, but they introduced us to a new kingdom. They did not let logic stop them. And here's the capper. Your ability to earn money. That's controlled by your paradigm. Now it's almost as if we have a box around these areas. And whenever we go to change anything in those areas, how we're going to change our time, how we're going to earn more money, we're going to be more productive, it's like we hit the wall and bounce back. Now look at this. When you make a decision that you're going to change the paradigm, the walls come down. That doesn't mean you change anything, but the walls come down, so when you go to move, you're not stopped by the paradigm. Now get this. I want you to imagine how your entire life would change as you begin improving any or all of these areas of your life. Imagine changing any or all of these areas of your life, how much your life would change. The change would be huge. And get this, the change would be permanent. You see, I mentioned to you that I picked this up when I was 26. Well, you know, today I'm 86. That's a long time ago. But I've been reading this every day now since I was 26. They said, well, how do you read? I just open it wherever I open it, and I read for a little bit. And I've been doing that now for 60 years. The change can be huge. Now, this is what Val Vanderwall really got me to see. And he says, when your paradigm shifts, everything shifts. Can you imagine if you just changed your habitual behavior insofar as your use of time is concerned? Do you know if you just studied for 1 hour a day, 1 hour a day, get up an hour early. That's where I study, early in the morning. Study for 1 hour a day. Do you know that's nine 40-hour weeks in a period of a year? And that's concentrated study. Can you imagine if you studied the mind for 1 hour a day? That's 9 40-hour weeks in a year. The change would be enormous. Have you any idea how much your income would change if you just worked on changing your time? Your income would skyrocket. You see, I've earned millions of dollars in my life. I maintain I can show anybody how to earn $1 million. It's not even that much. I can show anyone how to change anything. It's all in the mind. And it's you that's got to change. I can't change you, but you can change you. And I'm going to show you how to do it. Now, this is what Vanderwall showed me. Val Vanderwall said, Bob, I want you to look at the mind and paradigms. In fact, I want you to look at your mind and your paradigms. Then he introduced me to a man, and when he introduced me to this man, my whole life took another enormous shift. He said to Dr. Thurman Fleet, was from San Antonio, Texas. He was very involved in the healing arts, and he was very involved in holistic health. Now, if you've seen me do this before, ask yourself this. I wonder how many times Bob's seen himself do it. You cannot go over this concept too often. What I'm going to show you here is the most valuable idea I have ever learned. Now, he said, no one's ever seen the mind. And he said, it's too bad, because when we go for help with doctors now, the doctor treats the body. What we've got to understand is the doctor's treating a symptom, not treating the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem's in the mind. Pay attention to what I'm saying. And he said, nobody's ever seen the mind, so I'm going to draw a picture of the mind. And there's what he drew. This is such a magnificent concept. And then he took and he broke that big circle into two parts. And he said, that's top half is the conscious mind, and that's the subconscious mind. Then he said, the little circle in the bottom, Bob, he said, that represents the body. Now, the mind controls the body. Your body is like a dumb terminal. It is like a dumb terminal. This is, without question, the most valuable idea I've ever learned. In all 86 years that I've been living, I've never learned a more valuable idea. And it's what's going on in the mind that controls your body. It's what's going on in the subconscious mind that controls your body. I'm going to show you something real fast about the mind. Look here. The conscious mind, the subconscious, and the body. Now, the conscious mind is your thinking mind. Do you know that if you study all the great leaders who have ever lived, every one of them without exception are going to be quick to tell you that you become what you think about. Go right back in ancient history, as far back as you can go, every one of them tell us we become what we think.